Hello, everybody. Buddy Web, Midland, Texas. I had a Facebook post created today that had quite a few shares and comments and likes, and I thought it was interesting, and so I wanted to turn it into a video and share it on YouTube. Everybody could see it, okay? And I'm gonna do this little. The name of it's Hailey Dunn's Stripper Mom, and then we're looking at this picture right here, okay? And I found this. What I did was. I'm gonna show you. I just went to Google and I did a search for Hailey Dunn, Billie Dunn pictures, and then I found all these pictures, and then I saw this one and I clicked on it. Okay, and then when I did that, then I come into here, and there was this old website from 2013, Hailey Dunn's mother, pictures worth 1,000 words, and the one thing I want to say here, it is basically here. This was a comment from 2013. Says, rumor has it that this picture was taken at the Mushroom Head show and her son David Dunn attended with his mom Billie Jean. The horrific person in the picture with Billie Jean is one of the members of the band. Okay, and so anyway, that just gives you a little history on where that picture came from of Hailey Dunn's mom. Okay, I've got a short read, and then I've got some old proof files and everything, and I think I'm just going to read it out, and then we'll go look at them, and like I said, I think you're going to find this really interesting. Okay, it says, two different people told me that Hailey Dunn's mom was a stripper around the time that she went missing, the time Hailey went missing, and which seems to be an important fact that has been hidden from the public. Genesse Freiman Driver told me that she got it from a very reliable source that Hailey Dunn was going to the strip clubs with her mom, Billie Dunn. Hailey was a 13-year-old cheerleader in Colorado City, which is about 80 miles from Midland, where I live. Stacy, who is a friend of Billie Dunn's and an admin for the Hope for Hailey Dunn Facebook group, confirmed that Billie was stripping too. Okay, and so there's two people that told me that she was stripping, and that hasn't been in the news. Okay, it makes sense that all of the strippers in the area were working at the oil show parties, which would put Billie Dunn in the underground home in my backyard in October 2010. And since she was said to have been taking Hailey to the strip clubs, it's logical to assume that Hailey was also at these underground oil show parties, which would put Billie Dunn and Hailey in my backyard 2 months before she was reported missing. I have a feeling that the wealthy and powerful people that was attending those famous and wild oil show parties don't want anybody to find out this famous missing, murdered 13-year-old child was there with them. That would explain the obvious obstruction of justice that's going on. Several people are now documented saying that the mom had a connection with Hailey's disappearance. Okay, Sonia Renee Callahan, who described Hailey's murder to me on a recorded phone call, was quoted by Newswest 9 as saying this was over a drug debt that the teen's family owed. Okay. And then that video is called Child Killers. That's where Sonia Renee Callahan had said, hey, buddy, it was either her and me or just her, and that's what she told me and I secretly recorded that. Taryn Thomas wrote on my Facebook wall and said, we all know that Hailey, the mom, stepdad were on dope. And there was even more than that. But I'm just focusing on Billie Dunn, on the mom on this. Okay. Anything where the mom is, I can quote somebody. And I'm going to show you that in a minute. Drug rehab counselor Christy Otts told me in a Facebook message, the guy, who was Brett Bushman, said she was traded by her mother for a drug balance of $135 of meth. While she was in the care of the dealers, she flipped out and they shot her up with something. She overdosed and died. The guy who confessed to me said he took her back to her mother and they stuffed her into a box. He described the way they had to bend her and break her to fit. Then they buried her on a ranch outside of Odessa. That's an exact quote. I'm going to show you that print screen in a minute. Allison Frazier was recorded as saying they, Birdie and his friends, had gotten Hailey for a drug deal for a debt, and the mom and the boyfriend knew that was going to happen. Now, Allison was saying that Birdie and these guys had kidnapped Hailey over in Colorado City. There's more to that story, but what I did was focus on the part where she said they had gotten Hailey for a drug deal for a debt, and the mom and the boyfriend knew that was going to happen. That's on a recording we're going to listen to in a minute. The late Raina Brott said that Hailey was killed at her home on Cloudcroft Street in Odessa, which later burned down, and that the mom was one of Joe Commander's girls. Joe Commander is a former law enforcement officer in Odessa, from Odessa, and she was saying that Billie Dunn was a drug informant. I'm going to show you the print screen on that too. And then I just put in a short timeline of this happened and this happened, just to show you how this fits together, okay? From October 25th to October 28th, 2010 was the oil show, okay? That's the Permian Basin International Oil Show, major convention, wealthy people from all over the world flying to town. The parties that go on are famous, and you can bet every stripper in the area is working at them parties, okay? All the strippers would be there, okay? And it's believed that the parties were going in the underground homes, with one of them in my backyard, okay? So I'm suspecting that Billie was at those parties because she's a stripper, and since I was told she was taking Hailey to the strip clubs, I think she probably took her to the oil show parties too, okay? So then 2 months later, on December 27th, Hailey is reported missing 2 months after the oil show parties, okay? And it's my belief, my understanding from what I've been told, is she was kidnapped. And I've got recordings on who kidnapped her, And, I mean, they went over to Colorado City, kidnapped her, and brought her back to Odessa, okay? That was in 2 months after the oil show parties, okay? So then we'll fast forward, January 28, 2012, I'm ambushed and shot by somebody under my home with my phone lines cut, okay? Connected back to this home. And then here, March 14, 2013, I wrote the Department of Justice and suggested they look in the underground homes here for Hailey, okay? 2 days later, Hailey's remains were found by Curtis Lloyd 2 days after my letter to the Department of Justice. She'd been missing for over 2 years, and as soon as I suggested that they come here and look in these underground homes for clues in her disappearance, they find her over in Scurry County. Now I've got 10 people documented saying that she was killed over in Ector County over in Odessa, okay? And then the last point on there was it's found out that Curtis Lloyd, the guy that found Hailey, parents lived next door home in here in Midland, where the owner was reporting somebody in the attic. I think that might be a clue, that a connection back to the crime ring, okay? And so I took each of them paragraphs and copy and paste them to the bottom, and then I come in here and just put a proof file. 2 different people told me Hailey's mom was a stripper, okay? And so here's one of them right here. This was a print screen of the conversation on Facebook. I'm talking. I said, this is just one of the many people that said she was murdered over in Odessa. Another person told me that Billie was stripping in Odessa that week. I'm telling the people here in this conversation, right? And you can read all that. This woman, she was kind of rude. Karen Seeley, Christ, you accused her on the Hope for Hailey page? And then Genesse Freiman Driver said, now, buddy, I heard that about Billie from a reliable source, and that Hailey was going with her as well as staying in the dressing room while Billie Dunn, worked the pole, the stripper's pole. That's where I was told the first person told me that Billie Dunn was a stripper. And that's not what you see in the news. Nobody's ever mentioned that, and that seems real important, since that little famous, missing cheerleader went missing, then was found murdered, that the mom was a stripper. Because, that tells who she's hanging out with. Maybe meth people, maybe gang people, right? Okay. Stacy, who is a friend of Billie Dunn and an admin for the Hope for Hailey Dunn Facebook group, confirmed that Billie was stripping too. And this was on that Facebook group, Hope for Hailey, and this was actually Billie's friend, and she was defending her, taking up for her, and she says, keep in mind, while she was stripping, it was a third job because Clinton didn't work. She's also a nurse, and she's doing secretarial work and stripping, and so she was actually angry, and defending Billie. And, I'm not sitting here, pointing fingers and saying strippers are bad or anything like that whatsoever. I'm just saying I think that can be a factor in the investigation for the murder of this child, okay? And it's been hidden from the public. It makes sense that all of the strippers in the area were working at the oil show parties, which would put Billie Dunn in the underground home in my backyard in October 2010. And since she was said to have been taking Billie to the strip clubs, it makes sense that she took her to the oil show parties. Okay, and where do I believe that was going on? Right here, one in these underground homes. One of them looks like is in my backyard. It looks like they're using this tunnel right here that went from Home Depot over to my house, parking in this parking lot. The people going to the oil show parties in this parking lot with this excuse. See a lot of cars in the parking lot, we're stalking. And then they were coming in this tunnel right here that now has concrete with it. Remember, I showed Homeland where that was. 2 weeks later, they poured concrete there. And then here is one of the 4 underground homes. That's where it's believed to be at. Okay, and this is my home where I shot at. It's believed another one's over here, and then there's another one, underground home over here where they're believed to be at. But that's where it's believed the oil show parties were held. So that's where I believe Billie and Hailey were 2 months before Hailey Dunn went missing. Okay. Several people are now documented saying that the mom had a connection with Hailey's disappearance, okay? And so I first quoted Sonia Renee Callahan. I said News West 9 quoted her. And this is the article. Sister of jailed woman claiming Hailey Dunn was drugged to death speaks to News West 9. And I'm just going to look at the bottom here. It says it was a dope deal that went horribly wrong, and Hailey was supposedly used as collateral for a drug debt that the team's family owed. Okay, but that's only one person, buddy. Well, you just wait a minute. We got a whole bunch of others. Okay. Taryn Thomas wrote on my Facebook wall, and she said, well, we all knew that Hailey and the mom and the stepdad were on dope, you know? And see, and that's the thing, Taryn. I think it's safe to say that we all knew the mom, stepdad, as well as Hailey were on dope. People in Odessa have been saying the same hymn for years. And Julie Brindle says, I heard a similar but slightly different version from a friend who talked to the man that said he did it. Okay, maybe law enforcement wants to talk to Julie Brindle and follow them leads. Julie Brindle goes on to says, Mom did sell her. Oh, look there. All of a sudden, it's not just one single person, is it? Okay. Let's go to a next person. This is a drug rehab counselor, just got out of college, right? And you know, she gets the confession to one of the clients that comes in, named Brett Bushman, and then they called her crazy. Is what happened. They destroyed her life, and then she contacted me, okay? And I'm taking Pritch schemes and all that, okay? So here's drug rehab counselor told me in a Facebook message, and I'll just let you read it. It's right here. Hey, I ran across your video you did concerning Hailey Dunn. That little girl is where my entire life changed. My trouble started, and my kids got taken away from me. She believes it was because she was reporting this murder. She says, I got her murder confession while working at Turning Point. The guy said she was traded by her mother for a drug balance of $135 in a month of meth. While she was in the care of the dealer, she flipped out. They shot her up with something. She overdosed and died. The guy who confessed to me said he took her back to the mother and they stuffed her into a box. He described the way they had to bend her, break her to fit. Then they buried her on a ranch outside of Odessa. Now, all of a sudden, keep in mind, this is the same story that they remember that other people have said. Okay, this is a whole different person with the same story. Allison Frazier was recorded saying Bertie and his friends had gotten Hailey for a drug deal for a debt. And the mom and the boyfriend knew that was going to happen. I just took a real small clip of this thing here. Let me turn this up.
But I have the full deal from Bertie. I have it from Bertie because he told me what happened. That's my baby daddy. Right. What happened? He was crying, telling me that he needed me to know. He needed me to know. No?
Yeah.
Okay. He got down on his knees and he was crying, and he said that there was these people that owed him some money, and he had to take care of it. And I said, well, Bertie, what did you do? Hailey was still missing at the time. Her body hadn't been found yet. She wasn't dead yet. Okay? He got down on his knees and he was telling me that he had gotten Hailey on a drug deal, like a debt. And what the mom and the boyfriend knew that was going to happen. And Bertie was like, I'll take care of her for a couple days, and for I'll get my money back. And that's what he did. He was not this person when I knew him. Okay? This wasn't the Bertie that I knew.
Right.
He was fucked off on that. Bertie, he stood there and he was telling me that he got Hailey, he kidnapped Hailey, him, Plastic,
What is Plastic's real name? What is Plastic's real name, Allison?
Justin Braddock.
Yeah, Justin Braddock.
I want you to get a pen and paper and I want you to write these things down that I'm getting ready to tell you. It's Justin Braddock, Shuttlecroft, Kevin Richson, who else?
Yeah.
David Allison.
David Allison.
Okay, and there was more on that. What that was a recorded conversation from a Hailey Dunn blogger named Angelina Mitchell and Allison Frazier, and she has a baby with Birdie. Okay, he's a gang member there in Brotherhood over there in Odessa. He's now doing life in prison. Okay, but Birdie was Kevin Rickman. She called out Kevin Rickman, so that's the same person. They all got them gang named or them different names or whatever. Okay, but what I want to point out, we got one more person. They're all saying the same thing about Hailey getting kidnapped, overdosed, drug dealers, all of them. There's several people called the same names out, of people that were there. Okay, the late Raina Brought said that Hailey was killed at her home on Cloudcross Street, which was later burned down, and the mom was one of Joe Commander's girls. Okay, Joe Commander is a former law enforcement officer, and she was saying that Billie Dunn was a drug informant. I took a print screen of this. Raina told me all this, gave me this information, and says, I'm scared for my life. Please keep me out of this. And I sent that information to the chief of police, Seth Thurman here, and I didn't share it public or nothing. And then I found out that she died 6 months later. I believe they murdered her. I sincerely believe that she was murdered. Raina was. But this is one thing she told me here. Raina did before she died. She says, "I know more than you ever wanted to." And the so-called person who called and reported where to find her, Hailey, was truly no other than Brandy Dunn. Was also one of Joe Commander's girls. This is a law enforcement officer. Okay, just like Brandy was and still is. Okay. Your main cop of interest is Joe Commander. Ties are Brandy Dunn. They fall from here in Odessa. Odessa is the county where Hailey was killed. Okay. By the way, Hailey's mom. Okay. That's why I put that in there, because it was Hailey's mom saying that Hailey's mom was one of Joe Commander's girls, one of the drug informants. Okay. That's what she was telling me, and that could be verified, right? If we had legitimate press, to do any kind of investigation, you could verify that. Okay. And then a short timeline, Hailey's connection to my home. And all I did here was just go, this was the calendar for the 2010 old show. And this is also the same week that Angie told me about the young girl being murdered about. I made, a whole bunch of stuff. So, I'm also thinking that Billie Dunn might also be a witness to the murder of that other little girl. And, and that might, anybody's there, I'm sure they're afraid of them people. Angie was afraid to report that murder of that little girl, and told me high-level police were at that party, and I 100% believe that, but I believe at the same parties, Billie and Hailey were there. Okay. And then here on 2027-10, that's what I'm showing you, Hailey's reported missing. I'm going to show you the flyer. There's a $30,000 award, missing child, last seen December 27, 2010. That was 2 months after the oil show parties, okay? She's a little cheerleader in Colorado City, about 80 miles from here. Shows her 14 years old. And I'll go to the next one. That was time stamping. And this was January 28, 2012. That's when I'm ambushed and shot with my phone lines cut. Burglar alarms going off in the attic. I've been just all kinds of evidence on that, right? Now there's evidence showing police were under my home that night. That's how they got into my home. I mean, absolute proof. We got a Dickie inside my house at 11:05, and he wasn't seen arriving on the security cameras. He came in from the same trap door that I was shot from. I made a video about it recently, calling for Dickie to tell the truth. Okay, and then March 14, 2013, this is a year after I'm ambushed and shot, I wrote the Department of Justice and I suggested they look in the underground homes here. This is the email. There's the timestamp, 3/14/13. Then there was the email address, ask the DOJ, okay, the Department of Justice. And I wrote, I have overwhelming evidence to support the allegations of an underground facility, okay. Hailey Dunn, you see, maybe she is being held by these slavers under my home right now. So I sent this whole note right here in March 2013, and 2 days later, the remains of Hailey are found by this guy, okay? Man who found teen Hailey Dunn's remains speaks exclusively, okay? Curtis Lloyd, March 16, 2013. So 2 days after I wrote the Department of Justice suggests they look in the underground homes here, Curtis Lloyd finds it. And then I find out later, many years later, Curtis Lloyd's parents lived next door to a home where the owners were reporting people in the attic. That was on Dartmouth Street, 2505 Dartmouth. And I just happened to run across this. My roofer actually come over and told me about this home here, about Monty Gist at 2505 Dartmouth, okay? And when I investigate a home that where they're reporting people in the attic, and I actually went and talked to Shirley, I'm 100% positive people were getting in the attic of that house. I look at the next door neighbors because I suspect that's where the tunnel entrance is. So then here was one neighbor, okay? Terry Lloyd, okay? Well, that didn't mean anything to me until I started Googling Terry Lloyd, and I found out that it was Terry, and it was married to Marty Lloyd, and I found out that's the parents of Curtis Lloyd. I'm suspecting that Curtis Lloyd grew up in this house right here, and I'm suspecting maybe there's a tunnel coming from this house to that house, and that's why people were getting in the attic of that house, and Curtis was connected to this crime ring. And this is going on all over America, okay? This is not, just one home, my home. I've identified 50 other homeowners across the nation, a dozen addresses in Midland, another dozen in Odessa. I mean, it is going on all over the place. It should have been national news a long time ago. Okay. Kimberly post, she says, that's horrible, creepy, and man, hope these people get caught. Michelle Ray, she says, yes, I heard she was a stripper somewhere in Abilene. Apparently her place of employment was in Abilene. Okay, so now Michelle today was the third person to confirm that Billie Dunn was a stripper, and you didn't see that in the news, right? And so here I replied back. Now, it seems like I was told she was working over here too, but I'm not sure about that. I'll document you as one more person saying that she was a stripper, and that seems like a place you would see people on meth and gang members. Have you been to any of the old show parties, Michelle? They are real famous, okay? And so then I put this, which is screenshots I've taken about people talking about the old show parties, okay? This guy, Chris Reed, I took a screenshot one time, and he says, does anybody have any insight on this? When I first moved to Midland, working for a multi-billion-dollar oil company, I remember hearing talk of these huge secret parties, and I going, oh, I want to take a print screen of that, okay? Tisha Ann Wilkinson Brumley, she's writing to me, and she says, buddy, I've had friends and been involved in those old show parties. They're exactly what you say. They are underground homes, okay? Jessica Lee Adley here, she says, I've been to 2,000 old shows, and I'll tell you what, there's more than just that one girl that's been murdered or raped because she didn't do whatever they wanted to do. And then my late friend Victoria McKinney tells me about a friend of hers that was raped at an oil show party, okay? And so I just took what I want to say is that everybody in this area has heard of these oil show parties. They're famous. They're put on by wealthy oil men, and then they're connected with prostitution, drugs, drinking, etc. Okay. Rebecca, and I believe they're going on them underground homes. Okay. Rebecca Sparks, Abilene, and she writes, says, Abilene, Odessa share strip club owners. That was a fact around the same time frame. And she was confirming what Michelle said about working in Abilene. Okay. And then Michelle writes, buddy, I asked her, and she just says, no, she hadn't been in any old show parties. And then Michelle writes, Rebecca, and says, yes, Jaguars. And she was saying, yes, Jaguars is a strip club that has a club in Odessa and has a club in Abilene. Okay. And then here we go. Yes, it has to be Jaguars since there's location in Abilene and also. Okay. And here, this one got interested. Haley Wickington Degnan says Billie's boyfriend killed her, which, they arrested Sean Atkins. That's in the news, right? And of course, he hasn't been convicted. And so I had to come in here because I think they're doing a scapegoat on him, But I said, I don't believe that. That Sean killed Haley. I said, but I do believe that Sean Atkins knows what happened to her, and he was doing the meth with Billie that several people have spoken about. Remember, it's a family drug debt and all that stuff. After they arrested Sean, I called the DA's office to let them know that I had documented around 10 people saying that Haley was killed in Odessa, but I got their voicemail. Okay, I left my name and number, never got a call back. The evidence is recordings and screenshots saying who, where, when, and how Haley died. I had recorded one woman describing to me over the phone the moment that Haley died, and it was chilling. Amazingly, I didn't get a call back, and this is a capital murder case. This phone call to the DA's office was recorded and posted to YouTube for proof. Okay, so they can't say they didn't get my call, And I was then contacted by Sean's aunt, who asked me if I would share this information with his attorney, and I gladly agreed. But once again, I didn't get a call back from his attorney. The last I read, there's a mystery secrecy going on with this case, and I hope they're finally going after the people that actually killed Hailey, who I believe to be some gang members in Odessa. Several people have named them in these recordings. Do you have any information on this case? That's what I'm asking Hailey, because she's talking as for a fact, you know. And then I put a video called Hailey Dunn Killed Over Family Drug Debt, which we're not going to play it, but it's a good video to watch. And a lot of stuff what I've already showed up above, you know, of this person said that person said this. From the go, I followed it. Some of her friends come forward as well, reporting they're sorry being killed. And see, that sounded like bullshit to me, you know, because I wanted to call her out on that and say who said what and when, so we can get them on documented, you know. I mean, I'm like, that sounds like bullshit to me. He's being charged with her murder, and I 100% think he did it. He's also been raping women for years since who have been all come forward. And I don't believe he's ever been convicted of rape either, you know. I don't even think he's been charged for rape. You know, I think she was just making up stuff, and I wonder why, you know. Did you know that 2 days before her remains were found, I wrote the Department of Justice suggested looking at the underground homes here? She had been missing for over 2 years at that time, and I now suspect that Billie and Hailey were here for the underground 2010 old show parties. It just makes sense that all the strippers were there. On this phone call, I secretly recorded Sonia describing the moment that Hailey died, and since her testimony is backed up with multiple other people, then I'm sure this is what happened. And so this is the child killers. This is the call from
Hang up to decline the call.
Sonia.
You know what I'm saying?
Just waiting on you.
This has been a hell of a thing with this issue, you know what I'm saying? It's been a rough one.
Yeah, I mean, I really can't even imagine, you know,
I was there at the house, and I seen her, you know, my heart just went down to the floor. What do I do? Either respond in her life or mine, you know what I'm saying?
She just described the moment that Hailey died. And let me keep it in mind, I secretly recorded that in 2016. It was in 2012 when News West 9 was reporting what we read earlier, where she said she was at a home over in Odessa where a girl matching Hailey's description had died. And 4 years later, she's on the phone to me describing to me the moment that Hailey died. Okay. And here's Ashley says, so I assume they're going with the narrative and charging this Sean character. And that was, of course, the boyfriend of Billie Dunn, you know. And I said after they arrested Sean, I called the DA's office and told them I documented 10 people saying that Hailey was killed in Odessa with who, where, when, and how, but I got their voicemail, left a message, recorded it, etc. I've already said that before. Okay. And I said the last I read in the news, there's a super secrecy going on, and they're not releasing information to the press. I've wondered if they're going to finally arrest the people that actually killed Hailey. I believe that Sean has a part, but none of the people that I documented said he was there when she overdosed, when they did name who was there, okay? And this is just the latest news story, you know, that I could find. Mitchell County releases one page of Sean Atkins' arrest warrant. And that's who I called, was Mitchell County's DA office, okay? One page, and it was just heavily redacted is what it was. And basically it's just unprecedented secrecy on this. And I wonder if it ain't because they're actually going after the people that actually murdered Hailey. I don't know, but I'm 100% convinced that, you know, that she was killed in Odessa, like these many people have said. And I also believe that Billie and Hailey were at them underground old show parties here in 2010. And then that was probably the reason for all this cover up for all this year. That's why we've allowed these child killers to go free. Anyway, I thought y'all would find this interesting. Share this story. Talk to you later. Bye.